welcome back to another episode of Evolving Through Experience, where we discussing growth in every aspect, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and beyond. Today, guys, we have another special guest. And I always tell you all my guests are special, but this one is real special because this is the first vegan that I ever had on the show. And I always try to convert people to vegan, so they already knowing. So without further ado, we got Dawn Winters. How you feeling?
Thank you for having me. I feel excellent.
For sure. I'm glad to have you, for sure. So obviously, you know, outside of, before we even get to the vegan side, I wanted to have you on for a plethora of reasons. I know we actually met. I forgot when we met. I think it was like around InvestFest time, correct?
Yep, Upbeat.
Upbeat. Okay. That's my spot. That's my spot. I'm trying to get a sponsorship with them. Well, we gonna keep working on that at the end of the day. So I just want to start from the beginning, because at the end of the day, we all know life. I'm sure you have had experiences in life that has caused you to evolve to the person you are today, but also ultimately to the person you're going to be. So I just want to start from the beginning. Let's start from childhood, because let's start from childhood, and I'll just keep asking more questions, but no need to be nervous.
So childhood, of course, it wasn't easy, but there are lots of stories that's not easy. I grew up on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
A two-parent home initially in the beginning, and then eventually my mom and my dad, they got a divorce. And so then I was in a single-parent household. But I grew up in an era where drugs really became heavy on the scene, especially in the Black community. And I can almost literally tell you exactly when my parents started doing drugs. So, you know, growing up in that type of lifestyle, I always knew and wanted better for myself and knew that I had to change and to change the trajectory of my life by choosing to do different. And so I did so.
Correct. I love that, and with that being said, I did not know that, so I'm glad we're of course I'm glad we're going into it. So I appreciate the transparency. So at what time did that happen? That divorce, or when did that separation happen?
I had to be around the age of between 11 and 12.
Okay.
That this was happening because this was actually before high school. So I had to be early teenage years.
Okay, yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I think teenage years are obviously vital, pivotal parts. And I'm gonna say this now. I was gonna say this for earlier. I know you said you was 12 then, and I told you personally when I first met you, obviously I'm not gonna say the age, but you look like you could be in your early 20s, late 20s or whatever, like really young. So, and then from our conversation, like I said, I still wouldn't have knew that until you told me. So with that being said, as far as like before we even get to the teens, or we can stick with teens, what around that age, because I think those are like I said, pivotal moments. So what was an experience during that time that really shaped you to change you for another trajectory for the better, obviously still?
So it just depends on what, because there were a lot of instances where I had to change things, whether it was my mindset with money, my mindset with just wanting better and not becoming a statistic from the environment.
Correct.
And even diet eventually. So let me see. So growing up, I knew that, I always felt that I was more than the south side of Chicago. I was more than the circumstances that were before me. I just didn't know what I had to do to make the change or the people that I needed to connect with. But I know that it was something that I did feel. And my experience as far as the diet and getting older, as I was getting older or becoming older, where I can make my own decisions and I had autonomy over my own life, I knew that it had to be something that I needed to change as far as my diet as well. I just couldn't put my finger on it until I was exposed to the right person.
Okay. And we definitely gonna get to the diet. Well, I already gave it up, but we'll talk about why that change happened too. But just to double back, because I know you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said your parents got introduced to drugs, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that was around the same age, 12, or when did that
Around
happen
12,
before?
13, yes.
Okay. And what was like, how did that, let's talk about that, because
you're going deep.
Yeah, let's talk about it. The only reason I say that is obviously if you're comfortable, because it's somebody else out there that same
we need
age,
to talk about
a young woman or male that's dealing with that and having to see their parents go through this same phase. So what has helped you overcome that part too? Because they need to know that.
Well, what helped me to it wasn't easy to overcome.
Okay. Of
So I
course.
really didn't have any choice. That's just transitioning through life. But what I knew I had to do is do something different than what I was seeing my parents experience.
Correct.
So in doing that, I knew that when I had children, when it was time for me to have children, I didn't want my children to have to endure the things that I went through. And it took me being transparent with my children and just making certain choices. So in those choices, I chose not to drink, so I'm not a drinker. I chose not to smoke, and I'm not a smoker. And those are just not the environments I put myself in. But that was consciously because of what I was experiencing. During the times that my parents were getting high, like I was subjected to a lot of things, inclusive of being molested. So in those type of circumstances, I knew that I didn't want my children to experience, what I had experienced. So I had to make clear, precise, conscious decisions.
Yeah. And I would say, let me ask you that, because again, that's something I didn't know. Obviously, that's not something you're going around sharing, but again, I appreciate the transparency first and foremost. And with you saying that, I want to actually go into that more if you're comfortable, because I just had a guest on here.
Ooh, counseling session.
No. Look,
it's okay. It's okay.
And that's what
It's okay.
I want to make
okay.
sure you're comfortable, because I just had a guest on here, and it's funny you say that, because not funny, but you said that, but he just went through the same thing, and he's 56 now, I believe, and he was molested at 5 and at age 9 by older male cousin and then female neighbor. So, and I know this doesn't just happen to males. I know it just doesn't happen to women. And I want people to understand that at these ages, those are vital ages,
yes,
of course, and then also how that affects other people. So, if you don't mind, let's talk about that more.
Well, it was happening during the times that my parents were getting high. You know how you hear, and I'm trying to think of the term, because it's not of my experience, but you hear people say, like, they have kickbacks, right? That's what I hear the younger people say.
Oh, you mean like a withdrawals?
No, kickback. I think it's called a kickback.
Oh, like a party style. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Where people are, just enjoying themselves, so they call it, just enjoying themselves, getting high or smoking or drinking or whatever it might be. But just imagine those same individuals having children. And typically they like to tell the children, go in the room, stay in the room so they can do what the adults do, but not really monitoring what's happening with those children while they're in those rooms. It could be children or 2 children, multiple children. You just don't know. And they're not really present in the moments to actually manage or watch the children to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of. And that happens to be the things that were happening to me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that, first and foremost. And I also want to ask you with that, did you ever blame yourself? And then we can get into, did you blame your parents?
I never blamed myself. I've never blamed my parents either. And I can't tell you as to why. I know when I did go through counseling, I did mention to my therapist that I don't hold my parents responsible so much about my experiences, and the reason why, I really feel like they did the best that they can do under the circumstances that they had, because again, we're talking about drugs. And in order for me to move forward as an adult, and it might be the mature mindset, I knew I can't hold on to that because that would enable me to move forward. So I've never looked back on the past and said, I'm like this because you all did that. I've never done that, and I don't think that that's a productive mindset, even though people do succumb to that. But no, I don't hold them responsible. I feel like they were really victims of what was put in our community.
Intentionally, of
and
course.
Yes. And I feel like they did the best that they can do. I could have had a even or more worse type of situation because there are those stories that's out there too. I'm just thankful that I'm able to move forward.
And I'm glad you said that, because that goes into the mind where I want to ask you about the level of consciousness you've been able to come to. So at what point would you say that happened? I know you said adulthood, you got therapy. So do you feel like you came to that level of consciousness there? Or obviously it started young and it just obviously evolved. But where did you get to that mark right there where you just like, I don't blame them? You really sat down and realized you don't even blame them or yourself.
I think when I arrived to the age of 25, 27
Okay.
when I met my husband as well.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a good relationship with my father because of some other things that took place growing up. And when my husband and I came together, he told me, you can't talk to your father like that. You have to have more respect for your father, because in order for you to be blessed, you have to let go of whatever it is that you're holding. So I think it was my husband and the maturity age. You know, they say that children don't really gain maturity until around the age, I think it's like 22 or 25 when the frontal lobe starts to develop. So I do remember turning between 25 and 27 when I asked my mother to forgive me. So yeah, I think it has something to do with the maturity or the insight that one gains as they grow.
And it's funny you say that. Why did you ask her for forgiveness and versus like vice versa if they blamed themselves?
Because some of the things that my mother chose to partake in, I was acting out of anger and being upset and feeling like she should be a better parent, as opposed to saying, hey, she's doing the best that she can do under the circumstances. And you don't know exactly what it is that she experienced either when she was a child, or being able to, in some, not so much as she was a child, as she was growing, you don't know what her experiences were. And she had me at a very young age, so she had to grow up really, really fast. And those are the things that I realized a little bit later in life, because even though I knew that my mother had me young, I didn't know the circumstances around it. And unfortunately, she's no longer with us to ask her those questions.
Condolences.
And so for my thank you. And my father, I've been able to ask certain questions as to, you know, exactly what happened between the time, you know, that she conceived me and, you know, just some of her life experiences.
Yeah.
So I was able to get that from my father.
Okay, and I definitely want to go into that, but before I go into that, I just want to commend you, because that's a beautiful mindset, and I think everybody doesn't get there in life. I don't want to say, unfortunately, everybody's on their own timeline, so no diss to anybody else, but it's funny you say you caught that and you realize she's doing the best she could. At that moment, personally, I would say, I didn't realize that. I didn't forgive my father for certain things until I became a father. And then that's when that next level, and I'm 24, but so I didn't realize that until I became a father and I could see things from a father perspective. So at that time, at that 25, 27 age, and you realized
I was already a mother.
So I was going to ask you, did the mother, you being a mother, play a part or not if you wasn't a mother at that time?
I have no idea. And you just gave me some insight. Maybe that's what did it. I have no idea.
Yeah, you see things from a different perspective. So with that, with your father, what did he blame himself? Or
he didn't blame. He did apologize.
Okay.
He never. One of the things that, how he expressed it was he had no idea that this was going on. So back to your question, you were saying, did I blame myself? No, I didn't blame myself. However, I was mad at the individuals, not so much my mother and my father, but the individuals that committed the act.
Yeah.
I was mad at them. And I had to muster up the bravery to be able to express it to my parents that this happened to me too. And that happened in adulthood as well. So that's when my father, you know, apologized, but he never... Yeah, he never
blamed himself.
You're right. He never, and if I would never know. He's never voiced that.
Okay. Do you think he would voice it at this moment? If
I
that
have
is
no idea.
No idea. Okay. And it's I see a similarity, because it seems like everybody that I've known or spoke to that has been through that unfortunate situation, and thankfully they've been able to overcome it. I realize y'all all say the same thing, that it was always hard to pretty much tell your parents. So I want to know, like, do you feel like, what do you feel like? I think everybody's reasons is different, and that doesn't make anybody less or more. What do you feel like the reason is for you that it took you so long to tell them? Because everybody could be different. So I just want to know that.
Shame.
Shame. Okay.
Shame. Fear initially when I was younger. But then eventually shame. Yeah. Yeah.
And with that being said, I asked that because it's somebody else out there that's dealing with that now, and I want to know, what could you tell them? Because at the end of the day, that's not for you to be ashamed about. That's actually the person or the people that committed those acts that should be more than just ashamed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so it's like that the roles should be reversed. So I'm glad you said that, because I want to know, what could you tell them out there, a male or a woman right now that has been through that, and it's like, I don't know who to tell. I'm a child. I'm angry. I'm ashamed to even say something. What could you tell them now to, like, yo, you need to come out and let that out?
Well, one, I would say that it's okay to feel these emotions. The emotions that you feel are okay. However, sometimes emotions can also cause you to feel something about yourself that's not valid, that's not true. So, because that's what emotions does, right? It can make you feel as though what I'm feeling is accurate, whether it's I'm feeling bad about myself, I'm feeling bad about my parents, I'm feeling bad about the situation. Because the fact is that these things that happened to you were not your fault. So the emotions that they have caused are also not your fault. And it's okay to let someone know exactly what took place with you. Because one of the things that I find is that as long as you carry those emotions with you and you don't let someone know what's happening with you, that it's going to affect you in the long run. Because that's a lot of pain for someone to carry, especially a child. You know, and then to go into adulthood, it's almost like you're still dealing with that child that was mistreated, you know? And that can affect you in other areas in your life. So the sooner that, not so much you get over it, because that's not something you can easily get over, but the sooner that you seek help, or the sooner that you lean on someone to seek for advice, the better off you would be as an adult.
Correct.
You know, I know for me, that's what I would say to the child.
Okay.
And I know for me, what it kind of do as you are raising your children is almost like you hover over them, you know? Because with raising my children, one of the things was, you can't go over other people's house to spend a night. They can come over here. And I'm monitoring, I'm walking, the doors are open, people are sleeping separate. You know what I'm?
Yeah.
So it kind of puts you in the mindset of, you know, I even have to catch myself today with my grandchild or my grandchildren. It's like, do you know them parents? Do you know, is there a male in the house? Is there and those type of things. Like, so it kind of affects you even as an adult.
And that's understandable. And I feel like, is there a middle ground because do you feel, or have you been told that you're being overprotective, but obviously for good reason? It's coming from a great place, but at the same time, it's also coming from a place because you've been through a situation that you got to see everything every moment, that it could somewhat be overbearing for your grandchildren or your children. Like, how do you work through that for you, or have you? I'm sure you have been working through it. So what has been some of the things, whether that's feedback from your children or your grandchildren, how has that feedback been for somebody else that needs that?
Well, I'm dealing with this now.
Of course.
I haven't been told that I'm being overbearing. I haven't been told that. That doesn't mean that they're not thinking that.
Y'all thinking that? Okay.
I haven't been told that. And then the other thing is I'm catching, I catch myself. So this recent spend a night out, I was like, do you know? And then midway, I said to myself, you can't do this. You can't do this. You have to trust. You've given her everything that she needs to be able to consider the situation, or to have, just all the devices to be able to make a sound decision. And I have to know that I've given that to my children. So sometimes I catch myself, but I know where it's coming from. I know where it stems from.
Of course.
So I don't know if looking back and listening to it, this is like counseling. This is like counseling. If I would consider that I've healed with that type of mindset and behavior, I don't know.
And I think that's okay because that's why I call this evolving. It's not just a one day thing. You don't evolve today and you don't need to evolve no more. It's a continuous process. So you may have you may have healed from that, but it may be other factors in those same situations that need more attention one on one because, like you said, it could transmute into other things, other issues that would create a whole more issues than need be, and now you got to heal from more things. So before I transition to the next topic, I'm sure we'll double back too. I want to ask you what has been like some of the biggest things like since you've spoken with your father that has brought you peace, or even with your mother before she has passed.
Well, the peace that I have with my father is that I have to accept him for who he is. We're still growing. There's still situations. However, he's my father, and I only get one. So I'm making the best of our relationship. And if there are some things that I am displeased with, and there are, and I'm sure it is for him as well, being able to talk about it and talk through it, and then at the end of the day, I have to make a sound decision that he's his own person. He has his own journey, and I have my own journey, and I can't sit back and judge him. All I can do is be his daughter.
Correct. And I'm glad you said that. And I think I feel like a lot of people say this. At the end of the day, I do understand and consider it a fact. It's a fact that obviously we have our parents, but do you feel like some people, and not you, but just in general, that sometimes they justify it so much that they allow their parents to overwalk them and not take accountability for certain things? Obviously, like I said, without judgment, but at the same time, it somewhat becomes being taken advantage of by your parents. Do you feel like that's do you feel like that happens a lot where it's justified?
No, being taken advantage of by anyone is not justifiable. But what we have to do as individuals is we have to know what our boundaries are, you know, and I've been there and I've had to set boundaries, and they're not boundaries where they're not justifiable. They are. I have to protect me at the end of the day. I have to protect me, and I'm an adult now. And so I have that ability, and I honor that, you know, and because I have to protect me to make sure that I'm okay first. What is it that they say? You put your mask on first. I have to protect me first. Yeah, and that's the responsibility that I owe to myself and accountability that I have for myself. So,
correct. And was that when you say that happened, same age, 20, 25, 27?
The boundaries?
Yeah, the boundaries.
Now, I was taught that from my therapist.
Okay.
So I had a situation with one of my family members, and I was telling her, you know, what I was experiencing. And she said to me, why do you allow that type of energy to come into your space? And I was like, but what do you mean? She said, if that individual was to call you, and you know that every time they come into your presence or interact with you, that's the energy that they're bringing. You don't think that you have the right to make a decision not to allow that energy to come into your space at that time. You can call them back at a later time when you're ready to deal with the energy. And I was like, wow. That was out of all of the sessions I've had with her, that was the biggest thing that I walked away from. So setting those boundaries and choosing when you're going to interact with that individual, regardless of who it is.
Correct. And when did you start therapy? Was you always a fan of therapy first, or was you opposed to it?
I was never against therapy. I just didn't know how to seek it.
Okay.
And so one day I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast was titled Black Girls Therapy. Okay. And they talked about therapists in the Atlanta area. And that's how I found a therapist.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. I never heard them, but that's what's up. So therapy. So and what are some other forms of therapy? Because I always tell people it's not always having to go sit down on the couch and talk to somebody. It's other forms of therapy. So outside of that form of therapy, what are some other forms of therapy that help you today? Because at the end of the day, I think people think you evolve and you become great beings, but at the same time, you still have other things that you have to deal with. So what are some other forms of therapy for you?
One of the big ones for me is like what we're doing now, right? So listening to podcasts, listening to experiences that people have experienced and what the tools that they use to be able to get past whatever it is that, they're going through.
Yeah.
So I find that to be real big. And of course, self-care. So, and then sometimes you don't know what self-care looks like. And then you also have those that don't believe in listening to podcasts. So for me, that's what I use. I wake up listening to a podcast to help set my tone, especially when it's dealing with the mindset.
Of course.
Because that's the biggest thing. If you don't have the mindset, then you're not going to get the end result that you're looking for.
Correct.
And unfortunately, a lot of people that have experienced whatever type of trauma, some sit in it, some are looking to move past it.
Correct.
So
yeah. And do you meditate as well?
I don't, not at this moment.
Not at this moment?
Well, it just depends because meditation can be in all forms.
Okay.
So sometimes, I pray.
Okay.
That's a form of meditation.
Okay,
I
got
do
you.
pray. I pray
Yeah.
all the time.
I got you. Nah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to ask you, so the transitioning, so your husband, so I know you said you met him around 27, 25,
23.
23? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about that phase because that's also on here. I want to talk about that. How did that come about? Because I want to ask you how have you evolved from that? Because marriage is not a simple thing. I think people think marriage is simple. I'm not married or nothing, but I just know from seeing, but speaking with somebody that is married, I want to get into that.
Well,
so how did y'all meet?
Well, we were at Bible study and my husband, I had already had my experiences and not saying there were many, but I had my experiences. So I knew I needed something different in my life. I knew that I needed, I was ready for something different. So my husband happened to answer a question. And I was like, man, that was so profound. Who is that? So I was intrigued because we have all of these different sides to us.
Yeah.
So he fed that intellectual side of me. And so that's when I was like, I need to get to know him. And we became friends and then eventually we got married.
Okay, 23 and then y'all got married when?
It was around 25.
25?
I was
Okay.
around 25.
Around 25. Okay. So now that y'all already got married, so what has been some of the challenges? Because at the end of the day, I know marriage, I don't think any relationships are easy, truth be told, but marriages, I would say, is a different type. So what has been some of the challenges? And then we're going to go into some of the positive sides too.
Okay.
I mean, it's all positive, but just to focus on that, if that makes sense.
Well, communication, I think, and I know we hear communication all the time, but communication is not just us having a conversation, but actually hearing each other. And I think, it's not that I think, I know that has taken time. But I'm happy to be in that place where we can even say, even if we disagree with each other, we can say to each other and really hear each other. Not saying that I have to see his side or take his side or vice versa, but we can at least say what it is that we're feeling and make sure that we're being heard and respectful.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. What has been some of the biggest things he's taught you and then vice versa?
Oh, my husband has opened my eyes to a lot of things, especially travel.
Okay.
So
okay. Oh yeah, we getting into that. You already know.
So my husband is there is an age difference.
Okay.
And like I said,
y'all
even
both like probably in your 30s, 31.
Okay, we're gonna go with that.
Yeah,
we're gonna go with that. But so like I said, even in the beginning, he was the one that told me, hey, you're gonna have to respect your father. You cannot keep talking to your father like this. So he's helped me to grow in a lot of areas. And he's also helped me to be able to see myself, because sometimes we can be so caught up with everything but what we need to with ourselves. We see everyone else but ourselves. And I think that's one of the bigger parts of being married. In a marriage, that individual helps you to grow because they hold you accountable. Not being in the marriage, I could say what I want to say, do what you hear the women, you hear, I could do what I want, I'm my own this, not my own. When you're married,
different story.
It's a different story, right? They're going to call you out on your stuff, but it not only call you out, I'm saying in a good way, but it causes you to change and evolve into the person that you need to be.
No, for sure. And as you should. Do you feel like, let me ask this, and everybody's answer is different. Do you feel like your significant other is responsible for your happiness?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, it's up to me to make myself happy. And then whatever he brings, then I add that to what I've already done. Because
Gotcha,
if you wait on another individual,
Yeah.
you will
You're gonna
not
waiting
be
a long
happy.
time.
There you
Eternity.
go.
You're gonna be waiting for eternity.
There you go.
Yeah, facts. So what has some of the biggest things you've taught him that he's told you?
That's a good question. That would be a good question to ask
We're
him.
gonna have to ask him. Got you. So let's transition to this vegan life. I want to know, and I'm saying vegan lightly because I don't want to do the titles and everything.
titles.
But just for the lack of a better word right now, I ain't even gonna say plant-based because we know the plant-based mean they making out of plants, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
So what has transitioned to this, let's just say, healthier vegan side, quote unquote, lifestyle?
What helped me to transition?
Yeah,
what started?
It's both. What helped you? What caused you to? And then we'll get from there.
Okay, so I had bad allergies.
Okay,
I still have allergies today, but they're nowhere near like they were. So this one particular time, my youngest aunt, who I always wanted to walk in her footsteps and be just like her, she changed her diet. She became vegan. And so one day she brought me a meal, and when I first ate the meal, I was like, what in the world is this? I wasn't used to tasting herbs and tasting life, and that's what it tastes like, a lot of herbs. And so I thought she was crazy, but like I said, I was experiencing a lot of allergies to the point where sometimes I couldn't even go outside because they were just that bad. So we had Thanksgiving dinner, and we had the common Thanksgiving meal: the ham, the turkey, the cornbread dressing, the chitterlings, the macaroni, all type of cakes and pies. The grandmama house, everyone came to grandma's house, and we ate everything that we could under the sun. The next day I was sick. And so it opened, and I was old, like I said, I was old enough to be able to discern certain things. So at that time I was like, it's something that I ate. It's something that was on that table. Don't know what it is, but I had already been introduced to veganism. So that's when I was like, I have to change this because the allergies were that bad. I mean, to the point where sometimes I couldn't go to school, or I would be balled up in the bed, dealing with migraines. It's like, I have to change this. I have to change this. And that was my introduction to
that transition.
Yeah. Because I paused because I was like, do I want to say vegan or do I want to say plant-based?
We'll say transition
without my transition. Yes.
And I'm glad you said that because I think a lot of people know those same situations. The high blood pressure, it's not just allergies, but high blood pressure, kidney arteries clogged. I think they know these issues go on, and it's like, no, I'm not going to make any changes. So I think at the end of the day, like you said, it's a mindset thing.
Right.
People got to get to the mindset. And I'm not saying everybody has to go vegan, but if you're knowing certain things are causing you life
harm.
issues,
Yeah.
like it's literally life or death. You're going to either evolve or you're not.
Right.
So it's life or death. And I realized, and if you're not going to change, because I changed because my aunt had to give up a kidney for my grandmother. And also I know other people that was vegan before, like my uncle, and I'm just seeing how healthy they are. Because how long have you been vegan?
Ooh, 30 years.
30 years. See, I thought you was about to say 18 because
no,
I was about to say you 20.
30. No.
Yeah, because I know that because my point is, look how it has helped you to look so young and be young, not even look, but be so young. So that's why I asked that. But I think, again, it just comes down to the mindset at the end of the day, people wanting to change their life for the better. So with that being said, before I transition, what my next question was, so you 30 years, right? 30 years. So 30 years strong. What has been the process? Like, how has that even evolved? Because I know when I first started coming vegan, it was a process. So how was that process for you?
Well, for me, being that I was so young at the time, I just stopped doing everything. My advice now to people that are looking to transition is to do it slowly, right? Just take one thing out, decide over a period of time, and then introduce something different. But I was young. I just jumped full in because first off, I was tired of feeling the way I was feeling.
Facts.
And I had already been introduced to it, and I had someone close. It wasn't a friend. It was an aunt that I can easily call and say, hey, what am I going to do about the milk? What am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? And I want to note that at the time that I became vegan or plant-based or transition, these products that we have on the shelf were not there.
Yeah.
So I was making my milks. I was making my like the seitan. I was making all of these things from scratch. I couldn't walk into a store. And as a matter of fact, everyone thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone thought I was crazy. But now they want to know, how did I do it? What are you doing? What did you do? I wish I went with you.
Yeah. Life caught up, right? Life caught up. And I think it's still a learning lesson because I don't think it's too late for anybody.
No.
At the end of the day, it comes down to your mindset. But I'm glad you said you started cooking everything from scratch. People think I'm crazy still. Some of my friends, they be thinking I'm about to go back. But I'm glad you said that because, I've been working on something, right? So I'm glad your son is here too because I know y'all say y'all been cooking. So we need to have a conversation about that because I need something like that real soon. But outside of that, so now I want to go to traveling.
Okay.
So I know you said your husband introduced traveling a lot to you. Before then, you wasn't a fan of traveling, or just it wasn't like a priority, or what was it?
Well, I was a young black girl from the ghettos of America. Your mindset was only
different,
right until I was introduced to it.
Makes sense, of course.
It's rare
Exposure.
that you're introduced. It's rare that you come across African Americans that likes travel, or in my circle. So,
got you.
Let me just, in my circle. So my husband's family, on his father's side, they're from Panama. On his mother's side, they're from Barbados and Antigua. And so they travel, they travel. So one of the things that I know impacted my life with us coming together is that he's exposed me and my children to traveling.
Got you.
Yeah.
Nah, for sure. And I'm glad you said that. So how many children do y'all have together?
We have six. We have six children. 4 boys, 2 girls.
Congratulations. Hey, I commend you, and we're going to definitely talk about that because I'm one and done. I can't do it. I can, but I don't want to do it. I'm good. So as far as before I even go back to the children, the traveling, I want to go into, obviously, the motherland that you just came from. How long was you out there for?
Well, recently I had gone to, South Africa and Kenya, like a little shy of a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super dope. I need that experience. The furthest I've been is Australia, but I'm dying. I'm dying, but living to get to Africa. I need to hit pretty much as many countries as I can in Africa. Because Africa's a continent, guys. But I want to talk about that, about your experience in Africa.
Okay.
That's really special to my heart because I know I'm gonna be emotional when I go out there because I just know so much has been taken from us, and obviously they still taking from it. Even though Africa is the richest continent in the world,
isn't it?
On this planet. But I want to talk about that because I know a lot of people think. I know we see the propaganda that you go on TV, 50 cents a day will feed a child that's running around barefoot, one hand, and mother nowhere to be found. All the BS. And at the end of the day, I want people to understand that's not what Africa is. That's not all of Africa.
Right,
it's probably not even the majority.
It's not even the majority.
Not the majority for sure.
Right.
It's probably a small percentage, but they focus on that and make it seem like that's the only thing. And as a child, when I was younger, that's all I seen. So I wasn't exposed to understanding it's more. It's millionaires, billionaires over there that have communities taking care of their family. So I want to go into that.
So it's a lot of things that we're not exposed to, and that's intentional as well, just like with everything else.
Facts.
They do have a percentage of those that are in poverty, just like we do.
Of course.
They have a percentage that are homeless, just like we do.
Facts.
They have a percentage of crime, just like we do. So for people to focus on that the continent is experiencing these type of things and not looking at the fact that it's in our backyard too is really interesting to me. Because it is, we want to shed light on what's there, but we don't want to shed light on what's happening here. So, but my experience was wonderful. So this past trip, like I said, was South Africa, and we had visited Johannesburg and Durban, South Africa, and then we jumped over to Nairobi, Kenya, and then back over to South Africa, and then back here.
That was just hopping around.
And that's typically what we do, because let me tell you, to buy a ticket, when you go on the continent, to travel from country to country is it's not almost, it is. It's like going from state to state.
Okay.
So once you're on the continent, it's less expensive for you to visit another country when you're on that side.
Makes sense, yeah.
So once we flew into South Africa, then we jumped to Nairobi, and then we jumped back to South Africa, and then came home.
Okay.
And then the trip before that, we went to South Africa, and then we jumped to Ghana, and then back to South Africa, and
Got you.
then came home. Because again, it's almost like you're going from state to state.
Yeah. And so with that, I want to ask you, what was the most impactful moment of this trip? Because I know you've been
This
more than
one?
one. Yeah, I know you've been more than once. So out of everything you've seen on this trip, or even matter of fact, we can go over your entire time that you ever
That
been
I've
there.
traveled.
What has been your most impactful experience or thing you witnessed?
Well,
Same thing.
I'm going to say my most impactful experience on this trip was actually visiting Kenya and looking at my son's apartment. My oldest son purchased an apartment to Airbnb in Kenya. So it gave me a lot of joy because that's what we've been, we've been exposing the children to. So for him to make an investment in Africa is important to me.
Whew. I wouldn't have known that. That's lit. I definitely need to do that. It's funny you said that because I just got rid of my Airbnb and I just rented it out to a regular tenant. And Trey, he's been in Airbnb for a long time. He doesn't do it anymore now, but we pretty much transitioned. So at the end of the day, I transitioned. I'm not opposed to against Airbnb. I would do it again. Now that I've learned from my first two experiences and just scaling it up. But that would definitely be something. What part of Africa did he has that
It's
in?
Nairobi.
Nairobi? Okay, and how was that process? He lives out there or he just...
No,
Okay.
So
Now I need that
purchased,
process.
right.
Yeah.
I had purchased I was looking to purchase an inexpensive ticket when I found out that two of my friends were going to Kenya. And so I was getting ready to purchase. Then I realized that I couldn't go. So then I called my oldest son. I was like, "Do you want to go to Kenya?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I purchased the ticket and sent him instead of, going myself. And so he was able to experience it. And when I tell you that, like, he was calling, like, "This is nice. Do you know how much this costs? Do you know the services that I got here?" So it was a good experience for him. So when one of his friends that he made there had asked him that he want to do an Airbnb, he was all for it.
Yeah.
So
See, that's the type of things that make me want to be spontaneous and just, if I didn't have a child, I would just be like, yo, look, I'm gonna book a flight tomorrow and just figure the rest out to go there. But that's really dope. So with that being said, outside of one of the most impactful experiences, and I guess this would go hand in hand, what has been some things that they've shown you out there that, because obviously we know the propaganda that we see, but what have they, like with communication you've had with different people out there, what have some of the things they exposed you to or taught you?
So first off, the quality of life that our people that look just like us are having outside of America and not being faced with the same
Stigma?
fear of the police or it's just a different quality of life that we're not privy to being here in America. And you wouldn't know that until you go. I'm not saying that they're not going through anything that's like political but so are we, and to actually see the majority is us and they're living life. It's amazing because we don't see that here.
Yeah.
We don't see that here. But I also want to mention my other profound experience is when we took our younger boys, our younger sons, because they're not boys, our younger sons to South Africa and Ghana, and to get their perspective on them seeing the slave dungeons, like they like to call them slave castles, but the slave dungeons, and to be able to see the life that young people like them are living in Africa. That was profound. That was the trip before last.
What? And I always hear about that, and I know they always hear it's obviously an emotional roller coaster, just witnessing. So, do you mind sharing like your experience of seeing that? And it's funny they call it castles,
and it's not a castle.
It's far from a castle, but obviously the wording is intentional that they do. So, what was that experience for you?
For me, both times, because that even though we took them the last time, that was for them to experience, and I had went the trip before then. I had went to Ghana and went to the slave dungeons. It's a lot of anger. It's a lot of pain because it's like the way it makes me feel, this crime that was committed,
genocide.
We have no one is charged for the crime. And we're still dealing with that separation from our family. Because one of the things that I experienced is that the people that's giving the tours, a lot of them with the exception of the video that I sent you where the young man, the gentleman said, this is your history. Because I asked him, again, this was my second time. I've been to Elmina and I've been to Cape Coast. And I've been to both of those twice. That was my second time. And every time I interacted with the person giving the tour, they can't really, the empathy and the sympathy is not really there because it didn't happen to them.
They can't relate.
They can't relate. But for the last tour guide to say, this is your history that we're teaching. This is we're talking about what happened to you and your people, to you, those of you that are in the diaspora. So for you to come back shows that you all had the strength to survive. And he said that it proves to us, I can't remember exactly everything that he said, but for him to hear him say that, because this disconnect that not all of those that's indigenous to Africa, but to this disconnect is almost like, because I'm seeing the social media post, the things that's on YouTube is like, well, the African American don't know their lineage. They don't know where they come from. But it's almost like, but I'm still your cousin. I'm still your sister. I'm still your brother. And you shouldn't shame me for that because it wasn't my choice that this happened to me. You know? So it saddens me when I see that, but it brought me so much joy when that tour guide had said that to me.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because I know you said that, and I think that's good. But do you also feel like they don't understand that it's also their history to some degree too?
Yes, I don't think that they understand that. But until we make the connection, because again, just like anything else that is has been planned or strategically put in place for the disconnect, this is the same. This is with this as well. It's intentionally planned for us not to come together.
Of course.
So
how do you feel like that connection could happen? Because I know you've been there several times. I've seen you in the villages. How do you feel like that connection could happen?
Well, us continuing to educating them on our history as well as them
vice versa
with us. Because I've learned a lot this past trip, even how marriage, the proposal of marriage and the different gifts that you have to give. You just can't marry their daughters. You have to prove that, number one, you can take care of their daughters. So they want to make sure that their daughters are going in the right household. So even something is like that, like I was taught that. And it's like, wow.
That's interesting.
We shack up here. Yeah. You look up, you get married.
Yeah. So and with that, I want to ask, oh man, not to lose my train of thought. I'll come back to it when they come back to me. But as far as that, so how was that? What was the other process of like marrying somebody over there for them when it was explained to you?
Well, I'm trying to think because I wasn't really looking for it because I'm already married, having my children.
Well, no, not in the sense of like you was looking, but
no.
I'm
saying as far as the info, it's like what did I really keep?
I got you.
I think it's done more respectful. And I think with the relationships, and I'm sure it's not all with all relationships that's there, but the relationships that are built on the intent to marry, as opposed to here, it could be just getting together, or you're not pursuing this woman or pursuing this man with the interest of marrying. Yeah. So that's one of the things that was eye opening. That's what they're raised to have a family. Yeah.
And it makes sense, as you should. But I want to ask this then. I don't remember my other question just yet. But when you first went for the first time, did you ever go with expectations? Or did you just, obviously with an open mind, but at the same time with some level of expectation, would you say you went with any?
My first time on the continent, because I went to Israel as well some years ago. That was really my first trip. And a lot of people don't like to include that in Africa, but it is. It's northeastern Africa.
Egypt too, but
they don't.
They don't claim that.
So my first trip to South Africa was by myself. I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I wasn't expecting anything bad or I just went because I had a friend that was there and it had to be good because as a matter of fact, I had two friends that went to South Africa. And so my first trip to South Africa, it was by myself. And I just went to survey the land to see if I actually like South Africa and would consider moving there. So
I'm glad you said that because I'm glad you said that. I would definitely be not. I'm definitely far from opposed to moving there, just because I'm already planning to move out the country. It's in the process. Yeah, I've been talking about it, and I got a date set for it. I just have a lot of things over here. So I think when I say move, I'll probably be gone for 3 months and go somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, I have so much over here that it's not like I can just pick up and go. If I mean, I could though,
you could,
but that's a risk. That's a big risk. So are you planning on doing that move still? Okay.
Yes.
What's your time frame?
Well, hopefully by the end of 2024.
2024? Okay. I'm glad you said that because I was going to ask you this. When is the next time you going? Or do y'all travel in groups? Because I really want to go.
You want to go?
I want to go, and I think I think when the first time I go, I'm not going to take my son. Because I just want to get the full experience for myself because like me, I like to move around and I could be quicker than obviously having him. And he's young too, so I don't think I really would want to take him on that long of a flight. And I don't think his mom will want to bring him on that long of a flight either. So I just want to ask you, when is the next time you are going?
Well, as of right now, as far as I understand the conversation that my husband and I have had, he said we're not taking any more trips. The next trip is out of here. So,
oh man! Hopefully he reconsider. If he reconsider, just let him know I'm down. Like just let me know. Like just let me know because I would really love to go. I want to go out there. I don't mind going by myself by any means. I will definitely do that. But if I go out there and somebody that's already had the experience or familiar with certain things, let me know what to watch out for. I'm definitely for it. So whenever that is playing, if he does reconsider. And I think that's part of evolving, so he will reconsider. I'm gonna manifest that. Make sure he reconsider, bro. I appreciate that because I definitely want to get out there. But before I want to transition to obviously the soap evolving.
Yes,
the soap. One of the most important things that people need. But and at the end of the day, that's what we introduced. Truth be told, but they still rob in Africa. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about your business.
Okay, so. We run a bath and body company, a vegan bath and body company. I might add plant-based bath and body company. Yeah. So we make soaps, bath bombs, lotion, body oils, body butters, liquid soap, regular bar soap, all type of soap. So yes, that's what we do.
Okay. And what made y'all decide y'all wanted to do that?
So let me tell you this. Of course, with anything like that now you're vegan. A lot of things you make yourself, including you might conjure up some type of oil to rub down because it's good for you, and then you understand that your skin is your most important or your largest organ.
Facts.
And that whatever you put on it, you should be able to ingest.
Correct.
Right? So in doing that, and it was 2019. So we've been making our own body butters, making our own things for a long time. And then one day my father said, you should consider selling that. And I was like, selling it? Like everybody can just go in the kitchen and take some cocoa butter and some shea butter and some coconut oil. And like, what are you talking about? I even have friends that would cook with shea butter. So, it's like, I didn't think anything to it, but it became a thing.
That's good.
And we've been sticking with it.
Nah, for sure. And I didn't know how the origin story, but I'm glad you said that also because I think, like you said, with becoming vegan, you have to start cooking a lot of things. And that's been one of my biggest struggles, like learning how to do different things. Like I try to make grits with quinoa because I know it's possible.
Both together?
No, not mixing, but make grits out of quinoa. Because I seen a recipe, I'm like, yo, I want grits, so I was like, let me make it. But where I messed up, I got organic quinoa. I didn't wash it. So I made it. Okay. I had the butter, like vegan butter. I had the milk. I think I had almond milk or oat milk. I don't know. And it was like, bro. It was nasty. I threw it away. I'm like, I'm never trying this again. So like, but then trying different things. But even like when I first started, I don't even do like the burgers. What's those burgers called? The Beyond Burgers. Yeah, I don't even do that. When I first started, the transition was a process. So what do you feel like somebody else that's doing that transition? How do you feel like the best way for somebody that's been
transition from the transitional diet?
From the I know
you're talking about the processed things.
Yeah, the processed things. Yeah,
I consider the processed foods to be more of a transitional diet.
Okay.
It's for those that are looking to come away from meat, but they're still dealing with the mentality of they need to have meat on their plate. They're going to evolve. You know, they're going to evolve. Just like how I said, I was making seitan products out of seitan in the beginning. I don't do that anymore. So I mean, I think that's what happened. That's the natural progression of things. Is that you're gonna, you know, transition into something that's healthier.
Of course, as you should. Because I mean, what's the other option?
Yeah.
Are you going to ever get back to cooking?
Making meal prep?
Yeah.
If that's what God has for me.
I think he got it for you. We're going to put that out there. He got it for you. Yeah, so no, first and foremost, well, again, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I know there's more things we could definitely talk about. Any last words or any messages you want to leave for anybody?
Well, number one, we have something for you.
Okay.
So we want to, we
you
brought
a
gift.
Let's do it on the show.
We brought you a gift.
Oh, I appreciate that. Let's bring it on the show.
So
why not?
We brought you some bath and body products.
Oh,
we're not big on Christmas, but happy early gift day.
I don't do Christmas. I don't do Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't knock nobody that do, but I don't do it.
So we could not come on. We could not come on the show and not
make sure they
bring you anything. So we have you some liquid soap, sandalwood liquid soap, and then we have you an activated charcoal soap bar with oats, and a soap dish, and we have you some nice body butter.
Look at that. That's amazing. I appreciate it. We're going to definitely make sure we run this on the show. Make sure do a separate one for this. Y'all see it? Got the stand for it, too. No, I appreciate this. I'm going to hide this from my girlfriend. So
no.
This.
She's going to get it. She's going to get it.
We're not even going to let her see this.
Yeah. But my final message would be, don't allow any of the negative experiences to inhibit you from growing. You know, and always know that you're bigger than your circumstances.
No, I appreciate that again, because that's evolving through experience right there. It's evolve or dissolve. And y'all know, man, it's no other option. You're either going to evolve or you're going to dissolve. So again, if y'all enjoyed another episode of Evolving Through Experience, make sure y'all follow us, y'all like us, share it on all platforms, and then, man, just keep evolving to all my evolvers out there. I appreciate y'all again. Peace. I'm a bad bird.